What's going on, guys? I'm going to talk about the seasonality of foods and how it affects their mostly taste. If you're interested in the vitamin and the mineral content of foods, I have a video on how to source quality foods and talking about what makes a food high in vitamins. And that overlaps a lot with this because to have an animal food be high in vitamins, it technically has to be grown in season and slaughtered at the ideal time. Fruits and vegetables, not necessarily so, because those foods are grown on like the same plot of soil, and just the quality of the soil, what fertilizers they use, things like that are what go into consideration for those. But this video focuses more on taste. So I've gone to, and I'll do a video on this, I've gone to supermarkets and bought 4 or 5 different brands of blueberries, and I've tasted, or at least have tried to taste the difference in the quality, and most of that comes with what type of blueberry is cultivated and the time they pick it at, not necessarily what type of soil it's grown in. And that's why it plays a lot into seasonality. What's the point of eating blueberries if they don't taste good? I mean, that's the way I look at it. When you could find another fruit or another food in general that you can spend money on that you actually enjoy eating. There's a big difference between a bitter, tannic blueberry and one that's sweet, ripe. Vegetables, this doesn't really play in as much because I personally don't think vegetables will taste good regardless, unless your vegetables taste better through cooking preparation. But those vegetables grown in ideal conditions will in turn generally have more exposure to vitamin D, be higher in vitamins, things like that. So the main focus of this video is going to be animal foods, and mainly on, I guess, people who purchase local animal foods, and I guess even people that want to preserve their fruits or vegetables when they're in season. It's mainly that if you're going to buy locally, you don't want to buy beef from Georgia like right after winter, because the animals are being slaughtered after they've been on the worst quality pasture for like those few months out of the whole year. Same with buying salmon at this time of the year in like early spring. It's just out of season. There's certain points in an animal's lifespan where it has ideal amounts of fat and it tastes the best, and that's kind of where you want to pinpoint and buy that food. So for ruminant animals, it tends to be in the late fall, early winter, after they've been on the summer and fall grasses. And this totally depends on the place. That's why like this time of year it's March, I try to buy from Australia because their season right now is ideal, whereas our season is kind of tapering off. Although you could still buy in December beef that was slaughtered in October, November. So there is a bit of leeway, but once you get into like late winter, early spring, you ideally either want to have beef frozen from a previous ideal time of the year, or sourced from a different area that's in a different season. What you end up getting is the beef tastes better, it has more marbling, a higher fat content, and a higher vitamin content as well. I think all those things are something to consider when, even if you have to spend a few extra dollars on that food that's in season. And this is especially important when buying, no farmer really sells whole animals to people outside of that fall period, but it's definitely something to keep in mind and consider for even animals like chickens and pigs. Now obviously we have foods that we kind of consume year round that it's not really possible to eat them in season, because dairy, you can get dairy at all points of the year, and you could also get like eggs at all times of the year, and those are foods where you just have to hope that the quality is as high as possible at that point in time. So if you're eating dairy in the winter, yeah, maybe the carcinoid content's a little lower, but hey, maybe you're still buying high quality raw butter. Same with eggs. Maybe you're buying omega-3 eggs that maybe the chickens were fed flaxseed or something, just to kind of go that extra mile in regards to the overall nutrient density in your diet. Hey, maybe you only decide to buy imported cheeses, or maybe, that's what some Swedish indigenous groups did. They would store cheese or make cheese during the summer and fall, and they would store that for the winter and have a nutrient-dense food to consume throughout the winter. So I guess this kind of turns into like eating seasonally too. So yeah, throughout the fall, winter months, I would consume, or not necessarily even fall, but like the winter, the colder months, maybe even consuming 95 to 100% of your calories from animal foods would be the most practical thing to do. And then as you go into summer, spring, summer, and fall, you kind of switch that over and consume more local vegetables, local fruits, things like that. You're outside in the sun more, your activity level goes up, all those things kind of go hand in hand. And then in the winter, you taper back off to the animal foods. That's another thing for people to consider from a natural eating cycle. So I guess this is just another perspective to kind of follow a healthy diet. Like whether you could approach this diet from a food palatability standpoint, a nutrient density standpoint, an anthropological standpoint, and in this case a seasonality standpoint. And either way, if you apply any of those things to your diet and eat what's practical according to that, it kind of all relays back to the same thing of eating natural, high quality foods that are grown in their ideal environment.